Well, respectfully,
And
Marianne,
as
the
you'll
difference
see in
in...
many of those videos, women, the mothers of those children, are laughing as they're, saying that they're going to give up their children.
Well, the difference in your story and mine is that I have documents to support mine. What you have is you have the hearsay of people that you won't even identify for us, who will say that this is what happened. But if I could finish the response to the question. So CWA representatives, including Michelle Gardner, went to Kambata to interview these children. Now, typically, the process runs in serial fashion. That means typically a child is deemed an orphan and adoptable, and then a family is found. Because of the emergent situation in Kambata, what happened was this.
But these children have parents. They may be poor, but they have parents. Why would you be seeking to have those children adopted internationally? Why would you be coercing these families into giving up their children for international adoption?
Well, as I was going to say, so the reason that it happened the way it did in Kambata is because CWA had someone there to identify those children. Those same children still had to move through the formal process, but instead of things happening in serial fashion, while those children were moving through the adoption process, that is to be identified as orphans and as adoptable, CWA was looking for parents. So it ran at the same time. It shortened the amount of time that those children had to wait.
But those children were not in orphanages. They were living with their families. Mm-hmm. So why the need to shorten the time? They're actually surviving and living with their families.
Well, if you look at the definition of an orphan, apparently you and I are on a different page with that.
No,
but you can find that.
Definition of an orphan.
Okay. You can find that in the U.S. State Department. You can also find it in the Immigration and Nationality Act. And it says that an orphan is a child who either has no surviving parents or who has a surviving parent who cannot care for them and will relinquish them. Those children, and there are many children, Marianne, in Ethiopia.
But you're going into a village and asking people, would they like their child to go to a good American family? That is coercing people into giving up their children for international adoption.
That's your interpretation of it. You're putting the word coercing.
Call that harvesting of children. It goes against the Hague Convention.
Well, many experts that have seen the piece that you produced don't know the context of it. Many experts that you have talked with probably have no idea of what took place, just like the world does not. In fact, the piece really was a misrepresentation. I didn't see anything in the piece where you gave in full detail the explanation Ms. Gardner was giving to the crowd. If you listen to her explanation, it's entirely accurate. What she says is these children will become American citizens. She talks to these people about the gravity of the event. And the reason she did so makes common sense. When an American and when these government workers appear in Kambata, in this remote, very, very poor village, lots of folks gathered. It's important that someone explains to them the importance and the significance of what's going on. This is why we're here. The government had assembled children there, and I've heard you say that these children were with parents and they were surviving and they were just fine. If you watch the video, what you'll find is that 69 of those children did not have parents. 95 of them had one surviving parent, and that surviving parent in each instance said, I can't care for them. But CWA's role is not to define whether they're orphans. That process, Marianne, still had to happen.
But CWA is responsible to make sure that they are, to ensure that they are actually orphans.
On what do you base that? On what do you base that? CWA is responsible to make sure the children are orphans. On what do you base that?
Well, they say that. They say they investigate the backgrounds of children to ensure that the documentation is correct. Yet we have spoken to numerous families. Some we've interviewed, the few that are brave enough to be interviewed, who tell us their story about having adopted children who CWA said had no parents, no extended families, and sure enough, as soon as their child begins to speak English, they're told their child has parents, they have extended family. How do such huge mistakes happen.
Well, we're back to the secret witness thing again, aren't we? And I can't argue against secret witnesses or aliens or hearsay. I can't argue with that. I can only tell you what the facts are. The facts are that only the Ethiopian government, and you can find this on the U.S. State Department's webpage. I'll be happy to provide you a copy of it. Only the Ethiopian government, not CWA, not humanitarian aid organizations, not communities, only the Ethiopian government can determine if a child is an orphan. And once that is done, before that child can be adopted as an orphan, there has to be an investigation done by the U.S. Consular Office, an I-604 investigation confirming that.
Yes, but they get their information from CWA. So
now, where did you get that?
Because CWA is investigating the backgrounds of children.
Marianne, they don't get their information from CWA.
Well, where
the Kabli
do
office
parents get their information from then?
Let me explain this, and I'll direct that. The way a child is deemed an orphan in Ethiopia is a matter of law. I can provide it for you if you'd like to see it.
That.
And the way they're deemed an orphan is they first go through a Kabli process with sworn witnesses, then to a state court, then to a federal court. The Ethiopian government doesn't relinquish that privilege of deeming someone an orphan and in need. They don't relinquish that to anyone. That is their own.
So who is responsible for all of these children who have come here and actually have parents back home? Who's responsible for them being adopted internationally and the lies that are told about their family background?
Well, all that presumes that you're telling me the truth. I don't know that there are all these children that are here that have all of these caring, capable parents back there and that they've all been lied to. I have little to work with on what you're telling me. Innuendo and hearsay, things said in the dark by unidentified persons, how do I argue with that? I could do the same thing to you, couldn't I? I could sit here and I could tell you all kinds of things about you or about ABC that I've heard in the dark. What is that worth?
Well, we can't talk about individual cases, can we?
I cannot talk with you about individual cases because you know that I specifically, in the one case that you highlighted in your video, I specifically have been forbidden by their attorney, provide you a copy of that if you'd like to see it, from addressing the facts that are raised in it. Doesn't that sound suspicious to you that one of your key witnesses, one of the people who's brought you all these accusations now says, oh no, CWA, you can't respond publicly to the allegations that I make. You can't take my file and show them that I'm lying.
Why is CWA suing Lisa Bowe?
Let me say it this way. Tonight, Marianne, 500,000 children in Ethiopia will sleep on the street. By sunset tonight, 500 will die from starvation. CWA is not the only answer to Ethiopia's problems. International adoption isn't the only answer to Ethiopia's problems, but it is one of them. And there are children today who need to be rescued. There are children today who need what caring American and Australian families can bring them. What Lisa Bowe did was make a series of exaggerations and misrepresentations that has slowed and in some cases halted that process. The only way CWA can get a full airing of the facts, the only place they can open the file and address things in detail, not secrets, not innuendos by hidden witnesses. The only way CWA can have a full airing of this is in court. That's exactly why there is a lawsuit between CWA and Lisa Bowe.
So you're saying that any of the allegations that she made about being promised a healthy child and receiving a severely disabled child were lies.